We are back with the CBB Central podcast. It's been a little bit since we last joined you, about 10 days. Those draft decisions are now in, so we have a lot more clarity. We don't have full clarity, Brad, as John Rothstein put it, but we do have some more clarity. So this podcast will basically just kind of wrap up all those decisions, drop up some transfers of late, and also touch on the U19 rosters as well. We're recording after an NBA Finals game. I was joking to my friends before. The last time we recorded right after an NBA Finals game was the J.R. Smith game last year, Brad. I don't know if you remember. Yeah. I remember very vividly recording right afterwards and be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So when I saw the Steph technical, I was like, uh-oh.
No, yeah, I totally remember that. I think we started talking before the game was over, and I looked up and I saw J.R. Smith do his dribble out to half court again. I was like, wait, did you just see that? But yeah, very good game. It's tough because I was really excited to get on and talk, but with only so few basketball games left, it's kind of have to push that off and just watch the games, even if you're not, even if there's something that you'd rather be doing, because only maximum of 5 games left. So had to push off talking for a few hours.
I really did think this series is a lot more enjoyable to listen to and watch than some of the other series have been in the last really couple of years. Just because I really like the way Toronto plays defense, they play together. Kawhi's so special to watch. Siakam is this rising star who plays, such a unique game. And then obviously the Warriors, especially without KD in the second half, they're just moving the ball like crazy. Their ball movement was absurd. So I thought it was a really fun, just kind of basketball game. It was really fun on, Thursday night when they started the series too. I think it'll be a good series. Hopefully go 6 or 7. I think the Raptors have a real shot. We'll see what happens though. Certainly a lot of fun. The big news though in college basketball beyond the draft decision, I would argue probably more impactful than any draft decision, just kind of because of how good RJ Hampton is that RJ Hampton's going to New Zealand. Play for the Breakers. Of course, with this news came all the takes, right? I mean, that's the big thing with this. It's not that RJ Hampton, a good basketball player, is not going to play college basketball, and this is impacting Kansas and Memphis. It was college basketball is dead, or people don't like college basketball anymore. There were just so many takes out there. And I mean, I think some of it is factual in that elite recruits see college basketball as a means to an end, not a destination spot. It's just a developmental path on the road to the NBA. But I also think it's absurd that people think it's some kind of trend now because one kid a year doesn't play college basketball.
Yeah, and someone who was a lower ranked recruit and went to the same league was Brian Bowen, right? So Bowen was a top 25 recruit. Well, Hampton's a top 5 recruit. So Hampton's numbers should be a lot better than Bowen's. But just for perspective, Bowen averaged 6 points per game and 3 rebounds per game and 15 minutes per game. Okay, so if a top 25 player as a freshman, can only put up like 7th man, 8th man numbers, that's a really limited window because these teams only have 3 import slots where no one would want to watch Australia basketball in Australia if there weren't any people from Australia on the team, right? If it was all kind of NBA cast-offs, that wouldn't be very valuable. So as of most of these foreign professional leagues, right, there's a limited number of Americans that they can have. So in the NBL, it's 3. So you're going to use one of your 3 spots on your 8th man. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I know Terrence Ferguson is another guy who played in that league, and he had similar numbers to Bowen. Now, the difference there is, Ferguson was always going to be a draft prospect because of his 3-and-D potential. He's a very good athlete. Well, whereas Bowen was more, Bowen doesn't have a lot of upside. He's a skill player, right? He's not very athletic. He can't get by guys off the dribble. So he's more of what he's going to be, right? He's not going to become any more athletic. So you have guys either who are prospects based on their kind of upside, who are putting up middling numbers. You have like the skill-based guys who are also putting up middling numbers. I don't know how much incentive these NBL teams really have to invest their 1 year in these young Americans, except for like the publicity of it all. And for some more perspective, the best player in this league is Bryce Cotton. Bryce Cotton's won the MVP at least once. Won the championship with Perth, and he's a guy who played 2 years in the NBA as like a third point guard. That just kind of shows you some perspective on this league.
I mean, so my thoughts on this are this. My first thought when I saw this after like the initial okay, I had seen like Andrew Slater's tweet suggesting this was happening, etc. My first real thought was, what is the G League doing? If all the talk is, the NBA wants to get rid of the one and done, the NBA doesn't want to be associated with college basketball anymore. Even going further to like the NBA is more woke and they don't like the players are being exploited. Like things like that.
No.
Like if you want to go to like the woke take and say that, like if you're the G League, how are you letting the RJ Hamptons, the Darius Bazleys, the LaMelo Balls go away from playing in your league? Darius Bazley didn't play in your league because he was afraid that he was going to get exposed. RJ Hampton didn't play in your league because he could have gotten 4 times the amount of money. Like at some point you have to figure, if you want to have a developmental system as your league, then you need to build that from the ground up and have the G League be that. If you want it to just be minor league basketball with teams playing in Fort Wayne being washed up 28-year-olds who aren't going to make the NBA, that's fine. But that shouldn't be the developmental system for your league. If you want to have a developmental system, have a developmental system. So that was my first thought. My second thought was, how fun would it be if LaMelo Ball goes and plays for the Breakers? Plays with RJ. That'd be a lot of fun. I mean, we'll see. I don't think this becomes a super huge trend. I tweeted something to the extent of players who are presented with a clearly better alternative than college basketball in terms of development, in terms of exposure, in terms of money, will not play college basketball because it is a better path. But right now, there hasn't been a proven better path to the league than college basketball. And I think until that changes, we won't see this become a huge trend. I think college basketball can save itself a little bit by opening up to letting kids get endorsements and make a little money on the side. I also think that if the one and done opens up and we start losing, the top 50, top 70 kids in the league every year instead of the top 20 kids like they used to, then that's a hurt on college basketball's part. But I mean, as we've talked about in this podcast a lot of times, college basketball is about the brands. It's not really about. I mean, it is about the players, and it does stink when we don't feel like we have good teams. But like this year, Virginia, who had no top 50 recruits on the roster, and Texas Tech didn't have any. Those two teams still had a great national championship game, and I don't think that's changing anytime soon.
Well, I mean, Guy and Jerome were a top 50, but
were they top 50? I thought they were like 60 and 75.
Guy definitely was.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure Jerome was as well, but
neither guy would have been. Yeah, neither guy would have went out of high school.
No, that's the thing. Like, I think we're already getting to a point where the pendulum is swung in the other direction, where guys are making bad decisions by leaving too early. Like, it got to a point where guys weren't leaving early unless they were going to be first round picks, right? Then we got as long as you should get drafted, you should go. And now we've gotten to the point that you're being discriminated against in college basketball because you can't make any money. If you need to go make money, go even if you're going to be undrafted. But specifically guys like Armani Brooks was one where I'm not sure how much buzz plays into a factor in the draft, where Armani Brooks is certainly a draftable player. He could easily be taken in the second round. I don't think he will, because he hasn't really been on boards most of the season. And I think because of that, he wasn't invited to the combine or anything. I think if he comes back next year, he would certainly be on preseason mock drafts. And I think just coming armed with that, he'll have more attention and he'll have a better chance of becoming a higher pick because, you're making $0 now, But if you go and you make, let's say that you go to the G League and you make your $35,000 this year, well, yeah, that's more than zero. But if you can play your way into like a guaranteed second round contract the next year, then you're making 700,000, right? So I think there's a big like opportunity lost here with a lot of these guys in this kind of new school of thought that you can go whenever you want. That's okay.
I guess the way I would frame it is this, and I was talking to a lot of people about this because of the Jalen Pickett saga. That wasn't actually a saga if you talk to anyone who was in the know about the situation, but it was a saga because no one was saying anything, and that kind of made people scared. But like, it's important to go when you're ready. Like, even if, I can get paid now to play basketball. Like for Armani Brooks, I don't think a year more of development is going to change his NBA ceiling much in terms of where he's going to get picked in the draft, where he's going to be seen. But like, if you're not ready to go compete and be very good in the G League, you're not going to be on a roster because like bottom line, like the top 40 picks matter in the NBA draft, right? Because the way I always think of it is like top 30 first round and then the first 10 picks of the second round are legit, and then like the 40s and 50s are a lot of like negotiated two ways. Some guys are getting roster spots right away. A lot of draft and stash. Like I'd have to look this year, but how many of the guys in the 40 to 60 range of the draft, and last year was an historically deep draft, wound up getting guaranteed contracts? I don't think that number is huge. So like even if regardless if you're drafted, undrafted, whatever, you have to be ready to go play in camp and go play in the G League, because if you're not ready to play, then you're going to get bounced out of the league and you're going to lose all your buzz. There's something to be said for being ready to play in whatever league you're going to play, and if college is the level you're ready to play in, that's okay.
Yeah, so look at last year's draft. From 45 down, we'll do. Okay. Because it's also, a lot of guys, and you mentioned last year's draft was very deep in the second round, but a lot of guys in this range don't want to get drafted, and they turn down spots, to have the flexibility of being an undrafted free agent, which kind of skews the results here. But Hamidou Diallo at 45, he certainly had a guaranteed contract, started some games. Melton guaranteed, Svi Mykhailiuk guaranteed, Bates Diop, Metu, Johnson. That's 45 to 50, all guaranteed. Then you get Tony Carr, who they sent off to play somewhere. No guarantee there. Vincent Edwards was a two-way. Devin Hall they sent off to Europe or wherever he ended up. Shake Milton two-way. Kubalka stash. Spalding, he I think had a guaranteed contract.
Yeah, then he got cut and then wound up on the no, I think he was two-way and then got signed onto a guaranteed deal.
Gotcha. Kevin Hervey they sent off. That was surprising to me. Thomas Welch, George King, and Kostas Antetokounmpo, all two ways.
Right. So like just getting a two so because it's the range of like the negotiated two-way, there's not a lot of those guys may not have gotten drafted if they didn't accept being a two-way guy. Like for instance, I know Kenrich Williams didn't accept two-way offers. He wanted to just go to camp and make a team, which he did. But like the point being of like the difference between getting drafted 45 and being like the 100th player on the board isn't necessarily huge in terms of your chances of making a roster. No. It's just a matter of being ready to play when you're in that spot. And I think for guys, I think that's the number one thing you have to have in mind if you're in the fringe range of getting drafted or not. And we'll see. I mean, I think you're somewhat right in that. It's important. I like go back to college if you have to. I think the other thing is like you're gonna run out of two-way spots, and then you're gonna have to go play in the G League for $35,000. So how does the balance work of I thought I was going to compete for a two-way spot. Now I'm not even in that range. So how far am I away from the league?
Yeah, am I trying to give my point a little more succinctly here? I think people don't value anymore the let me come back, kind of a roll of a dice, and see if I can have a great season that I think I can have and move up the draft board. Worst case scenario, I'm in the same position I am now. Right? Like if Armani Brooks comes back and averages 18 points a game, shoots 45% from three, maybe he's a first rounder in the 20s. If he comes back and has the same season he just had, he'll be undrafted probably, but he's in the same spot. So maybe he's lost if it's in the G League 35,000, if it's overseas 80,000 in that 1 year. But is it worth that risk of maybe hitting $2 million a year, $3 million a year?
Right. And to be fair, we didn't have a ton of we had some of those guys, but we also had a lot of guys who did wind up coming back.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think of guys in that range. Cowan,
Cumberland,
Devin Dotson, Jordan Wara, Miles Powell.
I think if you're a freshman, you should always come. Like if you're a Devin Dotson, where he could have been a second round pick as a freshman, come back, because you could easily be your first rounder as a sophomore next year. You're still young enough. You have the year of college under your belt. You're going to be a star in college. I mean, I think in that situation, always come back.
Fair. But I think the general point is just like there was a good group, and we have a list on our spreadsheet that we use for this podcast of guys who could have rolled the dice and come back, guys who decided to go pro, and it's pretty even. Got guys like Amir Coffey, who I would consider in that Armani Brooks range, might not get drafted. Certainly a draftable prospect at some point. But then you have a guy like Miles Powell, might not get drafted, decides to come back for one more year. So it'll be interesting. Why don't we run through those important gains and biggest losses and kind of talk about the impact on their team. So let's start with some losses, because I think Jordan Bone, who you touched on at the top, Brad, is just about as big a loss as there is in this construct. I mean, I think Tennessee's still in okay shape, but that is a really big blow for one of the top 10 point guards in the country.
Yeah, he's really good, and a lot of people don't realize that. But I'm not super high on Tennessee. Certainly compared to everyone else, I'm very low on Tennessee. I think I'm going to have them around the bubble. You lose Williams and Schofield and Alexander and Bone. I mean, were those their four best players at the definitely the three best players.
I don't know if I would consider Alexander better than Bowden or Turner.
So at the very least, right?
But
they're also three best and four in the top six.
Correct.
Josiah James is probably going to be their point guard. He's not really a point guard, but I think he fits pretty well with Turner and Bowden. But I think that, just the overall talent level on this team, I think is lower than a lot of people think, especially in the front court. I know Yves Pons is like a favorite. He's super athletic, super high upside. Hasn't shown enough yet. Maybe with the starting power forward role, fully under his belt, he could show that. And then they have kind of a mismatch at centers that's not super appealing with Fulkerson and Burns, who redshirted this year. But I just don't think that they have enough overall talent on this team.
Right, they're full right now. So this is what they're at. So their lineup will be Josiah James, who's like a fringe 5-star Marcus Smart type, and then you have Lamonte Turner, Jordan Bowden, so presumably your 2 and your 3, assuming Vic Bailey can get a waiver. Obviously he would impact things. Then what are you gonna do? Play Pons at the 4, Fulkerson at the 5?
Yeah.
And then you have some, I don't know if I would call them fringe high major recruits, but guys who weren't elite prospects, and Devontae Gaines, who's originally from Buffalo, Olivier Robinson Kalmahua, who's a late stock riser, top 150 fringe kid who's an athletic combo forward. And I trust it's a pretty good backcourt. I don't know if it's a top 10 in the nation backcourt. The front court's not very good. Yeah, I would be inclined. I don't see this as a top 25 team. I think they'll probably dance just because how many times does a team with 2 really good veteran guards plus a 5-star in the backcourt not? But yeah, I mean, I don't think they're a slam dunk.
Well, I mean, I don't even know how much shot creation they have, because Bowden's not really a creator. He's more of an auxiliary piece. Turner's probably going to be their leading scorer. He's had a bunch of injuries too. I mean, he missed at least a chunk of this year with shoulder issues. And then freshman point guard who's not really a point guard. And it seems like a lot of people are giving Rick Barnes let's just trust Rick Barnes treatment. I get it with Mark Few. I get it with Tony Bennett and Jay Wright. Are we really going to give Rick Barnes this treatment now too? I mean, he said, the past 2 years in Tennessee, they've been very good, but has he really deserved the no matter who's on this roster, like we're not gonna care?
No, he is not. I mean, and I just kind of I usually try to look at KenPom pages, and one of the things I really utilize it for is to determine how much of a team's success was based on a system versus a player. So, for instance, if a team is always top 10 in defensive efficiency, I'm not going to say, oh, well, because they lose their best steals guy and their best shot blocker, they're going to stink on defense. But for Rick Barnes, they were the number 3 team in the country in offensive efficiency this year because Grant Williams was absurdly efficient. Schofield was really good point guard, really good auxiliary wings, as you would call them, in Bearden, or not Bearden, wow, Bowden and Turner. I got Lamonte Bearden, the whole thing. Anyway, but they have consistently Rick Barnes has consistently been, here's his offensive totals before this year: 36, 73, 74, 47, 61, 174, 31, 21, 24, 42, 3, 6, 6, 24, 16, 3. Those were some elite Texas teams he had with all the great recruits that he doesn't have right now on this team. So I'd say that 47, the 30 to 50 range, probably right for their offense. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I would say very bubbly right now.
Yeah, I mean, Grant Williams was an absolute steal of a recruit, as were Schofield and Bone. But when those guys were first there, Tennessee wasn't that good that first year, right? So right. Even if Barnes has found these under the radar gems like Olivier Robinson, Akinwa, and DJ Burns, I mean, it might not happen right away.
And I guess the other thing I would add is interesting to take, Victor Bailey. He's obviously talented, but would your opinion of his team change, say, if they had went out and gotten Shakir Houston, for instance, or Kerry Blackshear? I don't know how feasible it would have been for them to get either of them. I'd imagine Houston, given his list is Seton Hall, Grand Canyon, and Oregon, they probably could have got him. Does that change your view of this team?
I think you have to bump him up a little bit.
I would agree
because he's better than what they had, right? So yeah. So they have to be better. But I don't think that would make them a top 25 team for me, but I think it would make them a lot closer.
Sure. All right. Probably enough on Tennessee, but interesting nonetheless that now losing Jordan Bone. They're in trouble a little bit at least. Michigan wings, all gone. So Juwan Howard is officially starting from scratch. I feel like we kind of knew this, but it does leave him in an interesting spot. Just kind of generally. A lot of work to do still for Juwan Howard. I know they're in on 7th Woods. We'll see on Javen Cumberland, who I think probably goes to Cincinnati now, but we'll see. That isn't done yet. But yeah, I mean, they're running out of time to go get kids. Their roster's kind of in, NIT form? Maybe NCAA tournament?
It's just, if any one of those 3 wings came back, this is a top 10 team. But they're just desperately missing, a wing shot creator. And so I guess, Simpson is very, very good. John Teske is very, very good. Isaiah Livers is good. Right? Brooks is in the rotation. There's just this huge hole on the wing where they just really need a guy who can either really shoot the ball or can create shots. Even though Cumberland would represent a small perimeter, I think that would be a great move for them. It looks like right now the guy's going to be Cole Bejema, either him or Adrian Nunez starting at the 3, or they go 3 guards with David DeJulius. But either way, they need something else in there.
Well, the question is what's the strategy? Is it do they go with grad transfer? Do they go reclass? They probably can't go JUCO at Michigan. It'll be interesting. I mean, the reports are Dick Weiss just reported that it's a done deal that Phil Martelli is going to Michigan. We'll see if that does wind up going down officially, but that is now being reported, which I think is super smart for Juwan. But I think this year, I mean, when your best guy at getting his own shot is Xavier Simpson, you might be in trouble.
Yeah, this is a team that has some nice pieces, but just missing that one key piece. I think the most surprising one for me was Poole leaving. I know that was one of he didn't wait until until the deadline to announce that. That was announced a few weeks ago, if not months ago. But he would just fit so well, and I think he really being the featured offensive player would have really taken his game to the next level, and had a breakout year.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I almost feel like one of them should have stayed because they could have exploded their stock.
Really, the thing with the Brazdeikis is he's very good, but he is who he is. Like, he's super aggressive. He doesn't shoot it great, but he's going to shoot it a lot. He's versatile. He rebounds well, but I don't know how well he fits as like a role player. So I think him coming back and being the best player or at least the best scorer, that would have really shown his game in a positive light. Where I think he's probably going to be picked in the second round now, and I don't know how necessarily he fits with his style of play.
Yeah, I've seen very kind of mixed opinions. Some people think he could be like a bench unit scorer. I could see that, like fitting a role, guy can go get a bucket, physical toughness, energy type thing. We'll see. But yeah, Michigan's in a tough spot, so we'll see there. Poole back alone would have just, as you said, been huge. But none of them do, and so Juwan Howard has plenty of work to do and multiple scholarships to go do it. We mentioned Armoni Brooks, which impacts the Houston ceiling a little bit. Brooks, I mean, I would the big name now to watch there is Caleb Mills, the guy who came in January, the early enrollee. He's now probably going to start for them, unless they go grab Tevin Mack, who they're in on top. They're in they're getting an official visit, I believe, next weekend from Tevin Mack, which would be an interesting ad for them. I think it'd be really good in the defensive system if you get him disciplined. He can hit some outside shots. So yeah, I mean, thoughts on losing Brooks if you're Houston? I think probably knocks them out of top 25s if they were in them.
Yeah. For me, that they were right around 15, 16 with Brooks. They have to go out now. He was just so important. As kind of they're a premier shooter, probably would have been their leading scorer. So I guess Mills is the guy for now. Justin Gorham is he more of a 3 or a 4? Like could he fill the a perimeter spot there?
He was not a guy who created shots when I watched him at Towson. He was like a small ball 4. Not a guy who you're going to use as like a wing shooter. He barely took any threes at Towson. To me, he's your undersized bruising 4 who can finish at the rim and switch a little bit.
Yeah, so they really need another perimeter player. I think a guy like Javen Cumberland would be a great fit, but I think that probably too late to get into that game now. But if they get Tevin Mack, they have so much length, right? With Giroux, Hinton, Mack, White, and Gresham. I mean, that's a super long and athletic group. So they could be pretty interesting.
I'm excited for DeJon Giroux's 40+ usage rate next year too.
Yeah,
guy will be shooting a lot.
And I mean, Curtis Jones is another guy who's out there.
Yep.
He's not great, but he would fit either what Houston or Michigan or even Kansas could really use in their backcourt.
Jones was the guy I was thinking about as the ideal A10 grad transfer, like Mountain West, where like they can get a bucket. They're probably good enough at that level that their shortcomings are less exposed. Like, I know he's from Richmond, so people were discussing VCU the first time he transferred. I don't think that's happening, partially because I believe they're getting Bones Highland, which would be a huge get for them. I mean, VCU should be a top 15-ish team if they get Highland.
I think I'm going to keep him where I have him in like the 23, 24, 25. But they're running it back from a borderline top 25 team, right? They were a 9 seed. So that's right on the cusp, and they're running it back pretty much and adding Highland. They have a great point guard, Marcus Evans. They 7, 8, 9 deep. Yeah.
You're running it back plus adding a top 75 recruit, plus adding Hassan Ward, who's like a late stock riser type, plus adding. They didn't lose anybody. Like, they lost
Sean Mobley,
Michael Gilmore, and Sean Mobley. And then they have Marcus Santos Silva, who can only get better. Corey Douglas, who can only get better. I mean,
Vincent Williams.
They have a decent class with coming in. I think they've got a couple kids I remember liking who were the early signees.
Jaron McAllister,
that was the
former Virginia Tech signee.
I remember watching like a little bit of McAllister and thinking he was pretty good. So that was a while ago, but I mean, still, I remember putting the name down and saying that could be good at that level. So I think, I mean, you're talking about a team. Vince Williams, another guy, breakout guy in the wing. I mean, they're going to run out of minutes, but I mean, you're talking about what's your lineup? Probably Evans with his backup being Highland, and then.
So I have Evans, Crowfield, Van, Jenkins, Santos Silva. Rounding out the rotation would probably be Highland if and when he commits, and Sims, Williams, and Douglas.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that 9. I mean,
that doesn't even include McAllister and Trey Clark, Keyshawn Curry, and Hassan Ward.
Yeah, they could be good. I don't know if I'll go high as top 15, but I think that's pretty dangerous. But yeah, Curtis Jones, somehow we got to VCU breaking them down. Let's move it on. Nick Claxton, Georgia. This one I felt coming, but still stings a little bit just because of the upside. I mean, this team was clearly top 25, I think, with him. Without him, it's a lot more fringe. They're thin up front. Rodney Howard, they grab the Ole Miss commit, flips over to them, so that helps a little bit. They also have Hammond, who's like a bit more of a stretch big. They'll need Monze Numizi to step up a little bit. I think they have some interesting small ball lineups potentially with Hammond at the 5. Then you play like Christian Brown at the 4, Edwards and Walton, and then Donald Gresham, or like try to throw like Tyree Crump in there. So I mean, I think they have some options, but it is unfortunate that they lose him just because of how fun some of those lineups could have been with like. I mean, you're talking like Gresham, Edwards, plus like 2 or 3 top 100 recruits, and then Hammonds and Claxton. That's a pretty nice core.
Yeah, because they would have had 2 NBA first-round picks. Now, I mean, it's going to be up to Amanzi Ngumzi and Rodney Howard. I mean, they got to step forward. You know, they have big shoes to fill. But I think I see Georgia more as a bubble team now. That was just such a tough loss, but that's still a major step forward. And you mentioned they're a recruiting class, so they're in good shape for next year and in the next few years as well as these guys get older. But for this year, I would expect Edwards probably the leading scorer, Hammonds probably second leading scorer, and then they have a few guys who have been in the rotation for a few years, and Crump and Jordan Harris, who should score some as well.
So here's a question for you a little bit. And this is, I mean, I don't know how much this actually changes your opinion, but what are you expecting from Anthony Edwards and projecting them as a bubble team? Are you projecting like fringe All-American, first team All-SEC, fringe All-SEC, but like the leading scorer? Like, because I think there's levels to it, right? Like if he's a top 10 player in college basketball next year, which, for a top 3 recruit who's seen as like the best scorer in high school basketball is not out of the question. I think having what they have around him should probably be more than a bubble team.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's tough with these top recruits as to like what they'll put up, because I mean, like you had like your RJ Barrett who put up in the 20s, right? So did Zion. I guess 20 points a game, and then Hammond's probably 12 or 13 points a game.
Yeah, I can buy that.
Because I have Georgia 7th in the SEC, so I just flipped them in Auburn from when we touched on our top 25s either last week or 2 weeks ago. Whenever that was.
Yeah, I'm still thinking I'll have them above Auburn, but I'll have to take more time on Auburn's roster. Got a really interesting question when I was doing Q&A. Who replaces Horace Spencer's toughness for Auburn? That's a good question. These are the little things, right? I mean, they matter. Having a guy who does what Horace Spencer does, I think, is impactful, even though he didn't score.
Well, I mean, I think the center minutes, it's just McLemore and Wiley. Like Wiley's got to be better. That's two really good options in center that they have. Whereas Wiley was kind of marginalized as that third guy last year.
Next one up, Amir Coffey. This is an interesting one. One that I didn't really have a good feel for. One of those guys I really felt like he was just testing the waters. He decides he's not testing the waters, and they become a team that really needs a guy who can go get a shot at this stage in the game. If you look at this roster at this point, like good point guard Marcus Carr, at least in theory. I'll be interesting to see this wave of like Pitt transfers who put up numbers on horrible, horrible teams. And like how much can we actually give them credit for, like Marcus Carr looked good when you watched him, but like being the best player on the worst team in the ACC, what did that mean? And they're the worst high major team we've seen in quite some time. So I mean, you're talking about Marcus Carr, Peyton Willis, Kalsher, and then
you have Curry, Oturu, and Alahan Demir. So probably two of them at once.
I mean, can Curry shoot it all? No, right?
No.
So yeah, I would say you play Oturu and Demir if you can, but they played two bigs a lot this past year, so I guess you never know. Then the recruiting class is like fine, but not special. They like Trey Williams, who's like a fringe top 100 kid. I don't know how much he's expected to impact things right away, though. That's a lot to look for. So we'll see. I mean, Peyton Willis was a guy who like never really panned out at a Vanderbilt?
Yep.
So, I mean, they need somebody to go make shots because Amir Coffey was really, really good for that team. But it does solve their who's handling the ball problem.
They're done, I think. I think Minnesota's cooked. I thought that they were, probably like a 9 or 10 seed with Coffey. I thought that the lineup really fit well together with him in it. I think all the wheels fall off with him out. I think he was the key cog there, and I would be surprised if Minnesota doesn't finish in like the bottom 3 or 4 of the Big Ten.
Problem is the whole Big Ten's wheels are falling off, though, right? Like Northwestern's going to be terrible. Penn State might do some things. We'll see. Like they lost Bolton, but they still have Lamar Stevens and Mike Watkins. I don't know what people's expectations are for that team without Bolton and Reeves. Iowa's lost some pieces. Indiana's not got a very good roster. Nebraska's full of 5th best players. Wisconsin's roster is very meh. Rutgers just lost Omarui. Like that's a lot of teams that I'm like, I don't really want to pick this team to make the NCAA tournament. And then there's like even Illinois, who's like gonna play terrible defense and might way overplay Kofi Cookburn. Like, I am not confident in many of these teams.
No, a lot of the thing is, so many of these teams are indistinguishable from each other, but they're just not very good, right? Like
exactly.
Like Iowa will be excellent if Bohannon's 100%, but it doesn't seem like he will be, especially because I saw they're going after a grad transfer point guard in Bakari Evelyn. So without Bohannon, that's another guy who I think is just so important to what Iowa does that they fall pretty far for me. You mentioned Penn State losing Bolton. With him, they're probably in the mix for a tournament bid. Without him, I think they're probably NIT-ish. Rutgers, the wheels kind of fell off. You're right. But like I think Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, they could all be okay. Like they could all make the tournament. But even Purdue was a team I have in my top 25, and I think maybe I'm overvaluing them a little bit in their ability to kind of plug guys in because they're not only losing Carson Edwards, they're losing Ryan Klein and Grady Eifert too. So they're replacing a little more than I think I was giving them credit for.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. The league is down. Someone's going to have to win these games unless everyone's going to go 7-11. But it'll be 20-game schedule. So what, 8-12? Yeah, it'll be fun. There's a lot of question marks in this league, and I think Purdue's probably a tournament team. I don't know if they're a top 25 team, but I'm a big Painter guy. I'm big on their front court. Oregon, they just need bodies now. Luke King gone, we knew that. Wooten gone, we didn't know that. Their 6 or 7 guys are good, but they need like 6 or 7 more.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, where are they going to get these guys? Because they missed on Khaled Thomas, who I thought was going to be a shoe in there.
Oh, I did too.
I mean, who else is even out there? So they have 7, right? Because they have Eric Williams sitting out from Duquesne, they'd probably only get like 3 or 4 more guys, right?
I mean, I'd imagine they go like one JUCO kid, reclass, grad transfer or 2, and a sit-out guy.
Yeah. So
But,
that's there are a few teams out there like St. Joe's, Cal, that just have so many open spots. Pittsburgh, they got to get moving and fill these rosters.
I mean, I would say Oregon just needs to fill 3 bodies that are competent, and they're a tournament team.
Yeah.
Because they got everything else is good. I mean, I'm a little concerned about their big man situation. I think getting what's his name?
Shakur Juiceson?
No. Okoro, the other Okoro. Because I've been thinking about the Auburn Okoro.
Francis Okoro?
Yeah, Francis Okoro. I mean, they need him to step up a little bit. Juiceson would help, but I mean, he's one of those guys. He makes so much sense there, but he makes like no sense at Seton Hall.
Well, I think he would still start at Seton Hall. I think they would just bring Obiagu off the bench, and then they would have those 3 kind of rotate.
Was he going to play the 5? Does he want to play the 4? Because he committed He committed to UNLV to play the 4.
Well, he would play the 4 exclusively at Seton Hall because they have Mamukilishvili, Obiagu, and Gill.
I guess my thought would be like if you're playing with Mamukilishvili, who's the 4 there?
Well, I mean, Mike Lindsay was the 4, right? When he played with Sandro.
Sure. And I guess you'd view Juiceson as like a face up. And he does a lot of face up work. So I guess that works. I mean, I don't know. It'd be interesting. Oregon makes too much sense there, but
yeah,
it's made too much sense before. But yeah, they need bodies. Creighton on to the next is Martin Krompel goes pro.
Oh man, this is brutal.
It's one of those you kind of had to feel, right? Like he's 24, he's had multiple knee injuries. You got to go pro, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize he was so old because he was only gonna be a 5th-year senior. I mean, Creighton just would have been so good with him. He was a perfect fit with what they had. I moved them from like 10 or 11, outside of my top 25 for now, but I still think they're a tournament team. They desperately need another center in there. I know Epperson, former top 75 recruit. His freshman year, he was very good in limited minutes. Last year, he was injured, and I think he'll get a red shirt. And they have Christian Bishop, who's a small ball 4 who they used a lot at the 5 last year, and it was relatively effective. So he'll see some minutes there too. But they desperately need someone in there. They're probably not a good enough program to get Kerry Blackshear, but that would obviously be the perfect fit, and it would slide Creighton back into the top 10 for me.
Right, there's just nobody there. I mean, to go get. I tweeted out my grad transfer list. There's
Kelvin Jones and Blackshear. That's like it.
And I get Juiceton already has a list. There's literally nobody out there. At what point do you start playing the waiver game? I can't imagine there's a lot of JUCO guys out there who help you. And it's like, my thing is, if you're a redshirt junior and you can graduate this year, and you're at like a decent program and you want to go play minutes, like you have like Ed Mora, what are you doing, dude? If you're graduating, get out of town. We talk about this on every podcast, but dude, you got like 20 minutes a game on a top 25 team waiting for you. Yeah,
I made a list of guys. Well, I mean, Morrow couldn't go to Creighton because he can't transfer inside the Big East. But I made a list of guys who I'm very surprised haven't transferred yet. So for grad transfers, Morrow, Sam Timmons from Washington, Austin Davis from Michigan, Dylan Smith from Arizona, Olin Shinsky from UCLA, Nolan Narain from San Diego State, and then if Blackshear goes to Florida, which I know a lot of people are at least hoping for Florida fans, then I think Dante Bassett would be a great fit for this Creighton team. Would be a nice change of pace from Epperson. So I mean, maybe that's the move. But like you mentioned with Morrow, I mean there are teams like Valpo would be great with Morrow. Northwestern, he would play a ton. It's just it's crazy.
It's funny. Most of the college basketball media is complaining about players transferring. You got Brad over here making a list of guys who haven't. That's what this podcast brings you, folks. Let's move it along. Zach Norvell, we kind of touched on him a little bit already. I guess we did more pre-show than anything, though. Gonzaga's ceiling is limited. I think their backcourt ceiling is really low.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but is Admin Giller their best player?
That's a scary thought. I mean, they're recruits. I don't know. I get how much can you say a recruit is better than a guy who's averaged 12 a game in the SEC, but
because I think Tilly's still their best prospect for next year, and I mean I really like Anton Watson. I think maybe he starts at the 4. I really like Drew Timme. I'm sure he'll play a lot, but this is a team that loses their 4 best players and one of their top 7 in Crandall. Right, so the only rotation guys that they return are Tilly and Kispert, who are probably the 2 worst of that group at creating offense. They get Petrusev back, who's kind of in and out of the rotation, but their recruiting class is ranked so high, but it consists of 3 centers. So you have Tilly, who's probably going to play a lot of center. Petrusev could play some center, and then you have 3 other centers. I mean, it's very front court loaded, and the backcourt is really really missing something. But I think Thornton would make them rankable, because I think Thornton would be so much better than if Ravit is a normal top 175 recruit. That I think that delta there is enough to rank Gonzaga. I can't see how you rank them. I tweeted out when I made my top 25, because Gonzaga fans are very upset. Someone's like, how do you not rank Gonzaga? And I said, well, they're super young. They downgraded going from Norvell to Gilder, and they have no point guard. And he said, so? Like, so that's a big deal. Not having a point guard is a huge deal. And so what I did was I found 2 of the other top 25s where they wrote little blurbs in the article next to the teams, what they said about Gonzaga. So we have this first one, the one from SB Nation. It was, the somewhat surprising defection of Zach Norvell was a blow, but Killian Tilly's decision to stick in Spokane for another year should keep Gonzaga near or inside the top 10 in most preseason rankings. A top 10 recruiting class, plus the addition of Admin Gilder, cushions the blow of the Zags losing their top 4 scorers from a year ago. So one grad transfer who's not as good as any of those 4 players who left, plus a top 10 recruiting class, but they don't even have a top 10 recruiting class. They have the 12th ranked recruiting class. The recruiting class, which is half centers, is enough, but it doesn't even say why it's enough, right? Just citing a team, has a recruiting class doesn't make a lot of sense, because who has a better recruiting class than Gonzaga? Because this person had the Zags 13th, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure that they had Arizona lower. Arizona has the 3rd ranked recruiting class. Villanova has the 5th. USC has the 6th. Georgia has the 8th. Washington has the 10th. So if you're citing recruiting classes, then why wouldn't these teams be ahead of Gonzaga too?
So my thing with it was with Tilly's announcement, people were like, oh, now Gonzaga's good again. But no, the problem was not their front court. I was not like, oh, I can't rank Gonzaga without Killian Tilly, because they only have Anton Watson, Drew Timme, Philip Petrusev, all who very pretty unproven but excellent likely college players, plus what they bring back. That was never the issue. The issue is their backcourt, right? They have no point guard. They're gonna play Zach Norvell point guard, and then they're gonna play Admin Gilder a point guard, Derek Thornton a point guard, Derek Thornton who got benched at USC this year.
Here's the other blurb on Gonzaga, where Gary Parrish had them 9th, and it said, Zach Norvell's decision to remain in the NBA draft means Gonzaga is losing the top 4 scorers from last season's team. That's among the reasons why it was crucial for Mark Few to secure a top 15 recruiting class and enroll a heralded graduate transfer like Admin Gilder. Those are all facts, but it doesn't say why Gonzaga's going to be good, right? No one, right? Whenever you play the trust the coach card, right? What you're essentially saying is the coach is either such a good identifier of talent or such a good developer that some players are going to emerge. Especially with both Gonzaga and Virginia, I just don't see who's going to emerge from this group.
Wait, the players aren't even on the roster.
Yeah, like with Virginia, which might as well touch on this now too. Parrish's blurb is, the Cavaliers are losing the top 3 scorers from their national championship team, but Tony Bennett still has enough. thanks in part to the return of Giacchite and Clark to keep Virginia nationally relevant. How in the world is that enough to keep Virginia nationally relevant? It's a glue guy point guard and like a very good center, but he's not like an offensive player. And then I just wanted to read the other blurb from SB Nation, was Virginia 8th. It was, the reigning national champs lose their 3 leading scorers, but return key contributors Braxton Key, Mamadi Diakite, Jay Huff, and Kihei Clark. We've certainly seen Tony Bennett do more with less. No, we have not. We have never seen Tony Bennett have a roster like this and finish in the top 10. That is not even close to being true.
The other thing with that is, like, even if Giacchite is like a top 15 player in the, like, what's Giacchite's ceiling as a player in the ACC? First team? Could he be a first teamer? I doubt it, but let's say he is. Let's say Mamadi Diakite is a first team all ACC player. There's still a team with a lot of big guys and a weird backcourt. Now, you can bet on them, which I think I probably will. I probably went too high the first time when we talked about this on the podcast like 2 weeks ago. But, like, even Giacchite reaching his ceiling doesn't, and Kihei Clark, what's Kihei Clark's ceiling for next year?
11-5.
Yeah. So you have an 11-5 point guard and a 14-7 big guy. Let's say Diakite does what he does in the tournament. Yeah, I mean, that's not enough. That's not enough to rank them other than just to say their defense. At least with Virginia, you just have the justification of their defense. Gonzaga is just like, well, we're going to beat up on some teams that are worse than us, and we'll probably get ranked really high.
With Virginia's defense, though, right? DeAndre Hunter was an elite defender. Ty Jerome, very good defender. Jack Salt, very important, both as a screener on offense and as a defender. Those guys are gone. Huff is not a great defender who's going to take a lot of the minutes. You're bringing in Morcell, who's a freshman. I mean, Guy and Jerome, they were brought along very slowly. Hunter redshirted as a freshman. So you're going to throw Morcell in and expect him to pick up these concepts very quickly. And then Walden Tacey from JUCO. I mean, JUCO guys just flip a coin, but still a lot of new guys that need to learn the system. Which I'm not the foremost expert on basketball strategy. I'm not like a Jordan Sperber type or anything, but I think Virginia's concepts are a little more complicated than other teams, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily see how they're as plug and play as people think.
Yeah, I'll buy that. Moving along, Nebraska loses Isaiah Roby. Would have been fun to see him in that Georges Niang role, but in any case, I mean, this is a team we've talked about a lot, so I don't think there's a ton of need to talk about them too much on this podcast. I think they have a chance, just given the fact that the Big Ten, as we said, has so many holes. If they kind of figure, if Cam Mack looks like a really good point guard, if they get some surprise contributions from the people, I mean, their front court's still thin, but I don't think it's out of the question that they start winning some games and at least get into like the bubble mix. But I'd be pretty surprised.
Yeah, I think it depends on their 2 JUCO guys really, because I think we pretty much know what Hanif Cheatham is.
We absolutely know what Hanif Cheatham is.
If Cam Mack and Jervay Green, can really play at a high level in the backcourt, and then you get like a good contribution from Datchin Burke, maybe, right? But their front court is pretty thin. Even when Stevenson becomes eligible, I mean, at center, I guess Udrago is the starter right now, unless Walker gets a waiver. But even Walker, the guy, averaged less than a point per game at Tennessee, if I remember correctly. So it's pretty thin up front, and yeah, I think the best way to categorize them is it's a team full of fifth best players.
NIT bound, I would imagine. Moving along to Brandon Randolph, Arizona. Another important loss, although not that important, I would say. Like one of those guys, like I guess the reason for buzz with Arizona was like bringing everybody back from a team plus adding the recruits, and now they're not really bringing everybody back. But there was going to be a logjam. They already saw like Devonair Detrieve leave. Now Brandon Randolph goes pro. Obviously, kind of a different game there, but a loss nonetheless.
Yeah, I think he goes from being the starting 3 to now you slide Josh Green down, and I think Brandon Williams starts at the 2,
yes.
And they pretty much chug along. I think that they're a top 10 team. I got a lot of pushback for having them sixth. Not as much as leaving Gonzaga out, but especially Gonzaga fans, their main points of contention, were Arizona, Washington, St. Mary's, and VCU. Like, how do you have those above Gonzaga? And I think the main thing for me with all those teams would be point guard play, right? I mean, Arizona with Nico Mannion, St. Mary's essentially it's Jordan Ford, right? I mean, Cuse is the point guard, but Ford as like a primary creator. Washington with a Quade Green, kind of betting on his talent shining through, and the VCU with a Marcus Evans. I mean, it's kind of the difference for me.
Yeah, this is kind of a random thought from me, but I do kind of wonder. I feel like the rhetoric on Sean Miller has changed because of the cheating scandal.
Yeah, people think he's a bad coach.
Right, people think he stinks now. He wasn't great. Like, he was always a guy who was, like, doing well, but, like, crap the bed in the tournament. And now it's like, okay, now he stinks because he paid his players.
Which, I mean, he's had, if not number 1 seeds, then definitely number 2 seeds. Those teams with Aaron Gordon and Stanley Johnson, Rodney Hollis-Jefferson, I mean, they were churning out pros for a while. Where at one point, I would have considered Arizona, Duke, and Kentucky as the 3 schools where if you're a 4-star recruit, don't even think about going to. Now for me, it's just Duke and Kentucky.
But now Arizona's starting to get some of that. Take all the kids who are 4-star recruits and go to Duke and Kentucky.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Arizona's in great shape this year. I think people are really underrating Nico Mannion and kind of his impact because, as you mentioned, Sean Miller cheated. It seems like people have completely forgot about Stone Gettings, where he's not even mentioned. When people do their little roster blurbs. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? There is a person named Stone Gettings. He was a big time player at Cornell, and he will be the stretch 4 starting power forward for Arizona.
You're correct that he's a person.
Yes.
I'm not entirely sure he winds up being the starting power forward for Arizona. If nothing else, I mean, I hate to do the like for like because no player is the same, but like Evan Boudreau was pretty similar, like bad Ivy League team, put up numbers, like skilled 4 or 5, and did not do anything for Purdue. I also think generally with that kind of mold, it's like he's not athletic. A lot of his passing was because they played through a big Cornell in their system. So especially so it'll be interesting. I think Stone Gettings is good. I don't think he's so good that he's worth necessarily being in a blurb. So, I mean, we'll see I think he's probably there for, but, would not, I don't know if it would stun me, per se, if he winds up getting pushed towards the bench, just kind of in favor of, I don't know, I guess I'll play Jeter at the 5. Like, I could see Zeke Naji winding up playing a lot of those 4 minutes. Or even, like, I guess you could do, like, a Terry Armstrong deal, or like, Dylan Smith at the 4. Like undersized, like one undersized 4, but I think Najee's probably your 4-man with Jeter at the 5. Are you Ira Lee still there?
Yeah, and I mean Najee's a top 30 recruit, but in terms of former Cornell grad transfers, Sean Miller was very good for UConn from Cornell.
Too many Sean Millers in this conversation, Brad. I think we have to move on.
This is SHON or NN, but
NN. Finally, Rajon Tucker for the losses. We still have a lot of gets to get through, which we'll move through pretty quickly because this podcast will be 2 hours long. Yep. But Rajon Tucker, we kind of heard this rumor. So Memphis looks like they're set with the 12 scholarship guys. Lose the experienced guy, lose the shot maker, lose the guy who could really hit threes, loses an athlete. I mean, it matters. I don't know how much like Rajon Tucker was going to be the glue that kept it all together. And I don't know how much Rajon Tucker was going to be the guy. Like, if this was going to work or not work, was going to be because of Rajon Tucker. But it's below.
Yeah, I moved Memphis from like 5 or 6 down to 9. I mean, they're obviously still super talented, especially with having 2 one-and-dones with Achua and then obviously Wiseman at center. I mean, that's like the real advantage for this team. And then they have a bunch of guards that they can rotate through who are highly rated recruits themselves. It's going to put a lot of pressure on Lester Quinones. He's going to need to be their kind of wing scorer. Average probably 8 to 10 points a game as a freshman. But I like I like Lomax and Harris and Ellis for the guards. Bigs obviously speak for themselves. So Memphis is still in good shape, but they are incredibly young.
Very, very young. So Memphis will be in that range, and they'll be as talked about as any team in the country. Moving quite right along onto some guys that came back that I don't know if they were surprising some cases just impactful. We'll try to break some of those down here for you to wrap up this show. We're not going to get to the U19 teams, unfortunately, on this episode. We will talk about this at some point, maybe just over the summer once they start playing, because that'll be fun. It's something for us to analyze when there's no other basketball going on. But Charles Bassey, first off, going to Western Kentucky for another year. Everyone thought he was gone. Then, like midnight, he pops that he's staying. I mean, that is huge. I mean, that team now has top 25 potential. If you look at that roster, I mean, they went on Cameron Justice, who's the grad transfer from IUPUI, who averages like 18 a game there. They already had Tavion Hollingsworth, Jared Savage. I mean, talk about all these teams that could use a shot maker. I mean, he goes to a team where he's basically a luxury. They also have Kenny Cooper, potentially a point guard, who's working on a waiver. Carson Williams will be there. Josh Anderson's back. He might play some point guard. Then you got Bassey, who's a really good big. They already had Galen Smith back. I mean, they're going to be good.
I think if Kenny Cooper gets a waiver, I think Western Kentucky is definitely a top 25 team. Without him, I mean, Anderson's probably like the primary creator. And then like Hollingsworth, I guess, is the point guard per se. But they could use a more like distributor kind of a facilitator type with Cooper there. But I mean, lineup is probably what Cooper, Hollingsworth, Anderson, Williams, Bassey with Justice and Savage off the bench. I mean, that's loaded. Very
loaded. Very, very talented. Don't bet against Stansbury, man. Do not bet against Rick Stansbury. I would rank him as of now. I would say if they can get Kenny Cooper in there, who's really good, by the way. People don't realize he was one of the better mid-major point guards despite his numbers. Like really quick, makes the right pass, big shots. I mean, he's very good.
I mean, Justice should really pull an Ehab Amin and flip and go to Michigan. I mean, that was that was in his final list. He'll start. I'm not sure how good he is, but I mean, he would start, probably average at least 7-8 points a game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was a weird one. But Rick gets it done. Next up, we have BYU getting Yoli Childs back. That was a weird one. He'd announced he was going pro. It was all done, and then now he's back, which really makes things interesting because they already gotten Jake Toolson, the grad transfer out of Utah Valley following Mark Pope. Nick Emery's back. TJ Hawes is back. I mean, they got some other guys back and coming in as well. They could be legitimately interesting.
I didn't know that Toolson was a grad transfer. I thought he was sitting, but he's already 23.
Pretty sure he's a grad.
I guess he is, yeah. I still think they're probably third best in the WCC behind St. Mary's and Gonzaga, but ceiling's certainly a lot higher, and they're in the game now. Right? With Childs back, I think that they're in the mix for a tournament bid, which they haven't really been in a while, surprisingly, despite having a lot of talented players. It's going to come down to, I think, cohesion, right? If Emery is not someone who is like, like he's not the style of player that's easy to kind of fit with, right? So
correct.
Emery, Hawes, Toolson as your perimeter, and then probably Celius and Childs.
Yeah, I would say probably so. They're also 3 over right now. Maybe one of these guys goes on mission. A couple of these guys went up on mission, but I'm kind of confused as to where their scholarships are coming from. But no, they got some pieces. They're a good class coming in as well. They had an early signee, Bernardo da Silva, who's pretty good. He's another big guy. I think he would have probably been forced into playing a lot more if Yoli didn't come back. But they also grabbed a JUCO kid, Blaze Neild, late in the process, who people liked. So it'll be interesting. I think they're in pretty good shape. Probably top 50-ish team, I would say, because they were top 75 last year, and then they had impact grad transfer and everybody gets older.
Yeah.
All righty, Daddy, moving along.
Just first, speaking of teams that are way over the scholarship, I mean, Arkansas is at like 15, New Mexico is at like 16, TCU is at 15 or 16. So there are some moves to be made. I'm not sure how impactful they'll be. Could just be trim the end of the bench, send them to JUCO, but will be interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, a lot of guys are probably going to wind up at JUCO at this point in the game, but maybe we'll get some more news that are impactful. Kerry Blackshear, I skipped over by accident. He is unclear where he's going. Unlikely Virginia Tech, I would say still. Florida is the one spot I want to see, because if Florida gets me, they're a top 10 team.
Absolutely, because literally half of Florida's roster, if they get Blackshear, would be centers, but he would clearly be the best of that group. So then maybe a guy like Dante Bassett, as we mentioned earlier, opens up. But then they have a guy like Isaiah Stokes, who's like a skilled kind of undersized big man. They have Omar Payne, who's a top 40 freshman, but Blackshear, getting a proven veteran in there, that would really raise their ceiling. Maybe even push them to the top 5.
That team would look a lot like the Virginia Tech team this year, right? Like a high assist point guard, who makes smart plays, and Nembhard, a lot of wings who can score. He has like a 3-4 spot with I guess like the Chris Clark type in Keontae Johnson. A little different players, but same idea. But it's very similar, I would say. The fit makes sense.
I think I don't even know like what other logical destination they would be, because Kentucky certainly doesn't need them. Duke doesn't need them. Arizona doesn't need them. Creighton, are they good enough? Syracuse, I guess, could use them, but they're not going to be good enough. I don't think. Creighton, the team, would be good enough. I don't know if the Creighton brand is big enough.
I think Kentucky needs a big. They don't need a starting center. I guess like the idea is you just recruit over Nick Richards again, and then you do Blackshear at the 5, EJ at the 4 is your starting lineup game 1, and then like Sistine is your backup 4, and Nick Richards is your backup 5.
I think if you're Kentucky, you roll with with what you have here, right? With the Montgomery, Richards, Sistina, and then you're gonna have Whitney play some 4 probably. Dante Allen can play some 4. I mean, they're loaded on the wings. So they can go small too.
But Kerry Blackshear is better than Nick Richards. If you can get him, you just get him, and then you start him over Nick Richards.
I guess, yeah.
But it'll be interesting.
Then maybe Sistina opens up. Who knows?
Oh yeah, back to St. Bonaventure, who everyone thought, because he's like from like an hour away, he'll go there.
Well, Bonnie's only a center.
No, he's played the stretch 4 with Ashuni.
Okay, yeah.
It's also definitely not happening, but Anyway, Jaron Cumberland back to Cincinnati. I wanted to just kind of touch on this more not from the Jaron Cumberland perspective, more the Cincinnati perspective. I think realistically, this team has John Brandon done enough? He solved his point guard situation.
Ish.
He solved it as well as he could have at this point.
Yeah.
He got a guy like a combo guard who can play the point, Chris McNeil, who played point for New Mexico, and it was like solid. And then he got Meek Adams-Woods, who's like a fringe high major recruit, I would say. He put up good numbers at Brewster. He stuffs the stat sheet, can shoot the 3. He's probably gonna get recruited over, but he could probably play. If he can play 20 minutes a night at point guard potentially, it might be a 2-point guard you have none situation. I was comparing the McNeil ad kind of to like Kane Broome. Like I don't think he's necessarily a point guard on a good team, but he can really score, and so he helps you at some point, and he can shoot. So I don't know. I think are they a tournament team? They also had Jay Soroya from Valpo who can give him some minutes at center to help ease the blow of Nasir Brooks. With a star like Cumberland, I think it's probably a tournament team, but the rest of the talent level is not good.
I mean, they're right in the mix for a tournament bid. I don't even think it would be crazy to rank them in the top 25, just because, I mean, the guys that they lost were pretty much their role guys, right? I mean, Scott, Williams, Cumberland are all back. If they get Javen Cumberland, they could go small with, McNeil, the Cumberlands, Williams, and Scott, or, you can start a Sorolla or a Mamadou Diarra in there, get a little more size and bring, either McNeil or Javen off the bench. So I think that there is a lot to like. I was happy that Brandon went out and got grad transfers. He was really just grabbing whatever he could to fill the need there, because neither guy was a high profile addition by any means. I thought that they were going to end up getting Ryan Woolridge from North Texas.
Uh-huh.
He's only been mentioned with Minnesota and Arkansas, which I don't think he really makes sense at either spot, especially because Arkansas just got Jimmy Witt, who was an upgrade over Jalen Harris, but that wasn't even a position that they really needed.
Yes. No, I mean, I think they got guys who fill roles, though. Like, Sorolla isn't flashy. He only averaged 5 a game at Valpo, but he can, block shots. He's decent around the rim. He's always one of those guys where when I would watch Valpo, I'd be like, this kid looks pretty good. And then he's averaging, 5 and 5. I'm like, why is that?
Because Smits was starting over him, but...
Right, but Smith, they were both playing 20 minutes a night. Why was Smits averaging 12 and 6 and Troy averaging 5 and 5?
Couldn't tell you.
Anyway, Cincinnati's interesting. Next up, another team that's interesting. I think a team that's probably being overrated at this point because they're just running it back. Maryland gets back Anthony Cowan. I think the bet for them to be a top 5 team, which is what some people have, which I think is crazy. I don't know if it's crazy, but I think it's too high. Is Aaron Wiggins becoming really, really good, and Jalen Smith becoming really, really good.
Yeah, I have them number 4 for now. I don't feel good about it at all. I may end up moving Arizona back in there. Kansas will jump Maryland if and when they get a suitable, 2-guard in there. Whether it's a grad transfer that's left or a reclass from Kyrie Walker or something. I saw that they got a crystal ball pick for him. I know Nevada was trying to reclassify him when Musselman was the coach. So maybe that's a option for Kansas. But just Maryland, they have a great point guard, they have a great big man, and they have guys who are going to be sophomores who played a lot as freshmen and were effective as freshmen. It's interesting that I was so down and wrong on Maryland last year, and now this year I'm so high and am going to be wrong again.
I guess it's Bruno Fernando isn't nothing. He's a legitimately excellent player who they're going to lose. And I don't know how they're going to replace him with what they have. They have the Mitchell brothers who are interesting. Joel Mario's a lottery ticket. I'm not expecting anything from him.
It's a great move, though, to grab him.
Oh, of course. Why not? You have 13 scholarships. If you can get him into school, you take him and you figure it out. So, yeah, Cowan, people are saying Morcell's making a jump. That ain't happening. He's the same player.
Ayala is very good, though.
Yes.
I'm a fan of him. Wiggins, I don't think he's as good as Ayala, but I think he's certainly good enough, and I think we'll make a jump there.
So I guess the balance for me is, Brad, if you look at Maryland, and we can't just play the game of, how do you jump because all these teams did lose people, but we talked last year, the George Mason podcast. Why is how do they jump from 160 to top 50? How does Maryland jump from 25, 20 to 5 when they lose one of the best players in the Big Ten and, don't necessarily replace him?
It's just that everyone else lost, so much. Just looking at my 5 through 10, Kansas lost a lot. At least I think they did, right? They lost Grimes. Who else did they lose? They lost Grimes and...
I don't know. Let me think about that.
They took a scoring wing that I'm forgetting. Oh, Jeez, let me...
they lost Vic and Dedrick Lawson.
Yeah, Lawson. There we go. But so Kansas lost a lot. Arizona didn't really lose a lot, but they were below Maryland by a substantial margin. UNC got gutted. Texas Tech was gutted. Memphis was lower, and then Louisville was about in the same range. So
I guess my thing would be, I am more inclined to bet on a Texas Tech team that has lots of talent, an amazing coach, and breakout candidates than I am to bet on a Maryland team with lots of talent, an average coach, and breakout candidates.
I think Maryland has more talent at the top than Texas Tech.
I agree.
I was looking at Texas Tech, and I have them 8th right now, and I don't feel great about it. I mean, so the best player is probably Chris Clark or Moretti, which they're very good players. I don't know how good they are as your best player, especially coming from last year they were so good with Jared Culver, who's going to be a top 5 NBA draft pick as their best player.
I mean, I'm in the Kyler Edwards hive. I'm in the.
I like him a lot. I think he'll average double figures.
Yeah, I'm in the Jameis Ramsey bandwagon. Like I'm all in on like all the Texas Tech guys, and that's partially because I'm like believing in Chris Beard to make it happen. But I mean, like I'm just very high on everybody they have.
Fair enough. Moving on quickly to a little more of Kansas. I mean, Devon Dotson, that was just such a huge ad because they were screwed without him, especially with Hampton going to New Zealand. Quentin Grimes was surprising because at first it seems like he's going to start at the 2, and try to revive his career. Now they're desperately in need of a 2 guard, hopefully one who can hit shots. I mean, Grimes is not a good shooter, but either with him or without him, they were going to need a guy in there who could hit shots. So that'll be interesting. But with Dotson as a Azubuike, that's a great place to start for Kansas. And they have a popular breakout candidate, presumably, in Ochai Agbaji.
Not enough people are talking about how it's the reverse Malik Newman. I mean, you were like the only ones tweeting it. Come on.
It was funny because I saw him do that, and I immediately tweeted it. But first I had to make sure because I couldn't remember if Newman graduated last year or the year before. So I checked that. I tweeted out. Then I go to text you about it. I see that you already said that in the group chat, and then I saw you already tweeted it. So it's
too bad.
I was like 10 minutes late on that.
It's big on brand for the podcast,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean they're interesting. I think if the season started today, and I don't know. I mean, I guess Kyrie Walker is probably the guy. If the season starts today, you're doing Dotson, Agbaji, Garrett, D'Souza and Azubuike, or Lightfoot and Azubuike?
Probably Silvio. I mean, Lightfoot doesn't space the floor. So you're gonna play with 2 bigs, and I know a lot of Kansas fans are saying Kansas always succeeds with 2 bigs.
No, they're not.
But like Dedrick Lawson, Perry Ellis, the Morrises. I mean, these guys could at least stretch the floor to mid-range, and they all had 3-point shots. They were all much better scorers than D'Souza. It's just not a 1-to-1 comparison at all. If you want to say that's similar to like Thomas Robinson and Jeff Withey, like I guess, but that's the closest.
It was a very different time in basketball.
I was in high school. That was like 8 years ago.
It was a long time ago that you could do that. But yeah, I mean, their depth is weird. I got in a really mind-numbing argument the day of draft decisions. I was like, if Devon Dotson leaves, they're screwed because they have literally no options at point guard. That was my tweet. And someone replied, what, are you kidding me? We have Isaac McBride. You're an idiot, or something along those lines. And I was like, Isaac McBride is rated 131 in the composite. He is listed as a combo guard, and his 24/7 comp is Christian Vital. Tell me he's a point guard. He's like, you just said they have no options at point guard. He's a point guard. And I was like, dude, I just said he's a combo guard. If he's their point guard, they're not a top 25 team. And then someone was like, well, they could start Lewinstra. And I was like, no, we're not doing this. But, I mean, they would have gotten a reclass probably. But getting Dotson back is absolutely massive. They need more. They need another guard, but they're in at least like rankable shape. Probably top 10.
Yeah, I'm at 5 right now. I mean, it's from 4 to 10 is super close for me. So I think teams 4 through 10 you can put in any order.
I think I'd bet on like North Carolina over Kansas, probably Texas Tech over Kansas.
I mean, both UNC and Texas Tech, I think that their high end talent is well. So I think Texas Tech's high end talent is lower than Kansas's. Cole Anthony, I think, would be the best player on Kansas, but I think that his supporting cast is much worse.
The other thing to factor in with Kansas is Azubuike's health.
Absolutely. I mean, they have guys who they can turn to, but Azubuike is such a game changer. He's just so strong, so dominant inside. And then just one last thing on Kansas, the people who wanted Quentin Grimes to play point guard. I mean, come on. So I've been
promising point guard.
I've been on the right side of the Quentin Grimes history so far, and I think I have a great feel for who he is as a player. Right? He's a very, very good passer, but just because you can pass doesn't make you a point guard. He's in no means a point guard. Right? He's a nice secondary creator. He's being very underrated right now, as an overall player because I mean his freshman year didn't live up to expectations, but it wasn't like that bad.
He was the least efficient. In fairness, Brett, he was the least efficient offensive player other than Charlie Moore, and the worst defensive player other than Charlie Moore.
Right, but I think so. He adds a lot as a secondary creator.
Sure.
I think he'll certainly be a better offensive player in time, and I think his defense on it being fine too. The thing with him is he doesn't do anything great, and he's not a great athlete, and he's kind of like a power player.
It'll be interesting. I mean, I think you absolutely take a shot on him, even if you know he has to sit, you just take him and you hope, because you're not going to get much more talent out there unless you're like Kentucky or Kansas or Duke. I would say like I tried to make a list the other day in my head. Virginia makes a ton of sense. Gonzaga makes a ton of sense.
Marquette was on his first list.
Marquette maybe. Texas A&M with Buzz going back home.
Houston.
That makes a lot of sense.
Houston maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Will be interesting to see those lists come out on Quentin Grimes. I would imagine they're going to play that recruitment very close to vest.
Okay, moving on to the next one. Jordan Nwora for Louisville.
Huge.
Now that they have at least a solid point guard in Kimball, and now they have this big-time scorer in Nwora, I think I have them 10th. So I think that's certainly fair for now. I've got a little pushback from Louisville fans. If you're going to be upset with 10th, this is going to be a long season for you because you're going to fall out of the top 10 at some point. People love Sam Williamson. He'll probably be the starting 2 guard. Sutton's a really nice role player, and then Stephen Enoch and Williams splitting the 5 is certainly good enough.
Yes, I mean you're talking about Nwora as a top 10 player in the country. I would say. I mean, he's really good. Enoch is very good. Williamson is the X factor, as you said. I think it's down to him. I don't know that Fresh Kimball is your point guard as much as you want him to be. I saw actually some rumors about Ryan Woolridge there. I'm trying to find if I can find it on Twitter. Let's see if we can find it here. But I mean, I would be very interested to see like a Ryan Woolridge more like natural point guard type. Who could fit in there?
Yeah, that would be a good fit. Anything else on Louisville, or should we kind of rapid fire here?
We can probably rapid fire at this point.
Reggie Perry, Mississippi State. He was essential for me to rank them again. I think that their starting 5 is really good. It might be a little light on shooting, but Perry, I think, is a perfect 4-man. Then they return Adu at center, Weatherspoon Witherspoon at point guard, and then Carter and Woodard will be the wings. Their benches, I think, where it gets interesting. They have a top 100 freshman in Elias King, who's a scoring wing. They have your buddy Prince Aduro, probably the backup center. And they have some kind of under-the-radar recruits who at least one or two of them need to be rotation players.
I'm going to say I'm going to be a little concerned if Prince Oduro plays minutes on this team.
Even 12 behind Adu?
He wasn't good enough to play 12 at Siena.
So then, I guess they need I don't know. EJ Datcher is in luck then.
I guess I don't get the the archetype that Prince Oduro is. Maybe he changes his game from what he was at Siena, but he lists at 6'8", he's 6'7", and that's whatever. Everybody inflates their hearts, but he's a 6'7", 260 big man who doesn't block shots and just gets fed the ball in the post all the time. But he can't shoot at all. He was he shot 33% from the free throw line as a freshman at Siena. But I mean, he was not good really in any form. He shot under 50% from the field as a big guy. I mean, that's kind of a scary number. I'm trying to find his stats at the rim. I've been using T-Rank's numbers for stats at the rim. It's been very, very helpful in my analysis. But I mean, he's just a bad finisher. I mean, it's kind of irrelevant. That team's ceiling is very much not tied to Prince Oduro's ability to play 12 minutes a game as a backup center. But he rated as the worst player on Siena in Port Pagatu, Bartovic's statistical rating. He had the lowest true shooting percentage on the team. He was 45.9. Abysmal steal rate. Didn't really block shots. Like I said, the shot rate at the rim was bad. And I mean, and at the rim he shot 51% at the rim. I mean, that is not very good. So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of out on Prince. It was one of these things where he was gonna get poached by Mississippi State before he got recruited by Siena. He was getting recruited by Siena, he was signed, and then Ben Howland tried to poach him, and I think they just kind of jumped on him again. So maybe they see something I don't. But yeah, I mean that is a random rant of the day on Prince Oduro, in case you all care. But
just one last thing on Mississippi State. I think their brand is hurting them in the preseason top 25s because they're not in many. They're not in many at all. I think, but if you took their starting five specifically, with where these guys were ranked and how they've produced up to this point, and put another team's name on them, I think that they would be in everybody's top 25.
Oh, I think they should be. I think they probably should be ranked, or at least very close. Yeah. I mean, I'm a little concerned, just kind of how they're gonna balance their backcourt situation, losing Witherspoon. But I do think Reggie Perry is gonna be really, really good. I think he's gonna be a 15-10 guy this year.
Me too. I mean, he wasn't great at the combine. He doesn't have a ton of perimeter skill that you need to play the four for the NBA. But he's big. He's very big, and he's very mobile and very athletic, and he's in for a big year.
Yes, agreed. Last couple before we wrap this podcast up, because we're pushing towards an hour and a half here. Miles Powell. This makes Seton Hall fun. Maybe top 10 fun. I mean, another team that's going to kind of run it back. I guess they get the shot blocking influence of Obiagu, the potential improvement of a guy like Jared Roden or Anthony Nelson. But this is somewhat the same team. I think it's just one of those things that's good for college basketball. Even if Seton Hall doesn't make the second weekend, doesn't really contend nationally, this is a guy who is absolutely electric to watch. He's a shot maker. When you watch the G League Combine, he popped because he was a guy who could go get a shot, and there was a lot of guys who didn't go get shots in that setting. I mean, he's really fun. He's an efficient scorer. He made some more plays last year than he has. I mean, this team will be fun to watch. A lot of primetime Seton Hall next year.
Yeah, I mean they were playing really well down the stretch. They were playing at a top 25 level down the stretch, without a doubt. And they ran into a very strong Wofford team in the first round, and they played them tough for 90% of the game, and then Wofford just pop and exploded on them. But I think really where this team is going to improve, besides just just running it back, I think is really going to be in Jared Roden. He was playing great down the stretch, playing a lot of small ball 4. I'm not sure how much he's going to get to play small ball 4, given they have Obiago and Gil at the 5. They have Mamakilishvili going to play 4 and 5. They might even get Shakira Juice in there at the 4. But he's a great glue guy. He was hitting shots. He was getting rebounds. He's doing a lot of really appealing things. And have a star like Miles Powell cannot be understated. And Quincy McKnight, great defender, questionable offensively, but at the end of the day, he's certainly good enough to be your point guard on a top 25 team.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree with that. Neemias Queta back at Utah State. He was a guy who sounded like he was all in on the draft when he first announced, then decides to come back after a really horrible combine showing. I had been down on him after watching him in the NCAA tournament specifically. I thought, intriguing physical profile, intriguing instincts, both passing and shot blocking, but just everything's happened so slow. Like he needs like a couple quick rip through moves. He needs a couple. He needs to just get up, catch the ball down low, just be able to go up and finish right away. There's a couple things like that he needs to get better at if he's going to, continue to develop and become a NBA prospect. But that's big for Utah State team. They probably should be top 25. I mean, we talked about it a little bit. I don't know if it's like a regression of mean situation. Just like one of those teams where the whole was so much better than the sum of the parts that perhaps a regression takes place. Like the Loyola team, I guess like they had lost guys like Northwestern when they only lost Sanjay, and they all of a sudden don't make the tournament from being like a couple bounces away from going to the Sweet 16 and beating Gonzaga. I don't know if I feel like there's examples every year. Clemson this year, I guess you underrate a little bit, a loss or two, and then all of a sudden everything goes from 4 seed to not making the tournament.
It's tough because Utah State has 2 very, very good players in Brock Miller and Queta, but Northwestern had. What did I say?
You said Brock Miller, not
Sam Merrill. Sorry.
It's late. I'll forgive you.
But, I mean, Northwestern had Scotty Lindsey, Vic Law, Bryant McIntosh. Clemson had Reed and Mitchell and Thomas. So, I mean, these teams that pop, their bubbles pop early. I mean, they have good players too.
Correct. So we'll see. I think they're really good. It'll be interesting to see if the Bairstow kid, Cam Bairstow's brother, can give him some help. But they're one piece away, like one known piece away from me being wow. But for now, I'm gonna probably rank them, but be in wait and see mode. But definitely huge to get a guy like Queta back on a talent back like that for the Mountain West, which could be really sneaky fun. Because Nevada, if they get Jordan Brown back, it's gonna be an interesting team. New Mexico, we talked about the talent. San Diego State has the backcourt with Fegan and Malachi Flynn along with Matt Mitchell. They should be really good. Even tossing Boise State, who mid-year will get ACOT and Abu Kijab to go along with Derek Alston. So the guys they have bringing back. So that league will be a lot of fun.
All right, next we have a very important, the LSU trio of Skylar Mays, Javonte Smart, and Emmett Williams. And then Marlon Taylor too, technically. But so that's 4 of their starters. The 5th starter will either be Trendon Watford or Darius Days. But that's a really strong top 6. A lot of talent. A lot of guys who have a year of experience under their belt now. It's going to be tough losing Trayvon Waters and Reed, specifically Waters. But I think they have two really promising guards with Mays and Smart who can take over. I have LSU as 16th or 17th in my rankings.
Yeah, I'll rank them for sure. I mean, Smart playing point guard's a little different game, but that's what he was as a high school prospect. I think Will Wade's a good coach. I mean, say what's wrong with the cheating stuff, I think he's a really good basketball coach. And they'll run Smart, Mays, as you said, Taylor, and then I'm disappointed that Watford gets there, if only because I was ready to be the leader of the Darius Days hype train. That won't happen, but he'll be a really nice reserve big man. And then they'll also have Charles Manning, one of the better JUCO prospects. And we saw kind of the perfect use of a JUCO this year for them with Marlon Taylor. not needed to come in and score and be like a heavy usage guy. Just come in, know your role, and he did know his role. Was very very efficient. Made smart plays, gave him defense, athleticism, energy. Manning was very good in JUCO. Kind of that secondary creator type, 17, 5, and 3. Shot 37.5% from 3. So he should be useful. And they also have Andre Hyatt, who was he was like a top 150 kid, like a big wing who could shoot it, who was considering Rutgers. Then all of a sudden LSU swooped in, as well as James Bishop, who is I believe a 4-star kid out of the DMV. So they'll be in good shape in the backcourt, and then a 3-headed monster up front of Emmett Williams, Darius Davis, and Trenton Wofford.
So they're gonna be a lot smaller. No Kavell Bigby Williams protecting the rim, no Naz Reid, but I mean the talent's certainly there, and I think that they'll be in very good shape. Then lastly, just two other guys: Xavier Sneed, Kansas State; Desmond Bane, TCU. I don't think either of these teams are going to be very good, but I think it's true with the whole Big 12 that the teams on paper look good enough where maybe they could be a bubble team, probably more NIT. TCU really hit the grad transfer market hard. It's another team that has like 15, 16 guys right now. I think kind of similar to Nebraska, except they have a NBA prospect in Desmond Bane. TCU has a lot of like 4th, 5th best players. Kansas State, they have a couple holdovers from the rotation last year, but they lose Stokes, Wade, and Brown. But they have a very good coach in Bruce Weber. I'm sure that they will defend. Just not sure how they're going to really create a ton of offense.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to touch on TCU because you said they hit the grad transfer market hard, and they have, but it's just weird. Like, their entire roster is, like you said, they have 15 guys, which they do, but they have Jadion Ledee, who has to sit, presumably, although he could be a waiver candidate going back to Texas. If he doesn't get a waiver, though, their only big men are Kevin Samuel, who I think is really good, and then Russell Barlow, who I don't remember much of.
He was redshirting, and then when they had the midseason exodus, they broke it, and he was kind of in and out of rotation.
Yeah, he did not do anything. Okay, he played 8 games. But yeah, I mean they have no size other than that, and they went out and got like $1 million of the same player. Like Edric Dennis, 6'3" guard who's physical. Jair Grayer, 6'5" guard who's physical and might be able to shoot it. Taryn Todd, late stock riser guard, 6'2", can score. I mean, they already had like 4 point guards on the roster, and Farabello, PJ Fuller, RJ Nembhard, Kendrick Davis. I mean, not all those guys are true point guards, but like what's the overlap here? And they're 15 right now. I would assume Owen Asheris probably goes off scholarship again. I think he got one last year, but I guess he probably goes off scholarship, and then they have to find one. Don't know where that will come from, but I mean their roster's just weird. Like they don't even have necessarily like small ball 4 types. Like Jair Grayer is probably too small to be a small ball 4. Maybe Mickey Pearson.
I think Grayer will be their starting power forward, but
that's not good.
Yeah.
So just a weird roster.
Between TCU, Kansas State, and West Virginia, I was very confused at how to rank them. Even like Iowa State too. I don't think any of those 4 are going to particularly be very good. I could see Kansas State going like 3 small in the backcourt with Williams, Diarra, and McGurl, and then Sneed at the 4 and McCole Mayween at the 5. I guess they're going to rely a lot on the JUCO transfer David Sloan. I think a lot of people thought was going to go to Cincinnati. And that's the bottom of the Big 12, I think.
Yeah, I mean, David Sloan is an interesting guy. He was like a high assist point guard. He averaged 12 points, 9.5 assists, which is the best assist rate in the country. Also, over 3 assist to turnover ratio. He shot it interestingly. Like he made like a 3 a game at 39%, but only made 53% of his foul shots. So kind of unclear how the shooting actually will translate. But I imagine he's probably. I mean, I think you probably go like him and Jara in the backcourt. I don't think Jara is like necessarily like a true point guard. He's one of those guys that he handled the ball some for them, but he's not really a point guard. McGurl's still there. He was the guy. He had like that weird, like nice run in the NCAA tournament 2 years ago. but then didn't do as much. Like he was on everybody's breakout list and it didn't really happen. But he's like an athletic guard who gets the rim. Yeah, it's a very weird roster. If I was running through the Big 12 right now, I'm going Texas Tech, Kansas. That's my clear 1 and 2 in some order. Then, some combo of Texas, Baylor, and Oklahoma State.
I think Baylor's the clear 3.
Probably.
And I think Texas, Oklahoma State is its own tier, which I can't put them in order. I think Texas 4, Oklahoma 5, Oklahoma State 6.
Okay. And then you do like Iowa State 7. And then
I did TCU, West Virginia, Kansas State. But I have no confidence, really, from 5 down.
Huggy really thinks West Virginia's going to be good.
I know West Virginia fans thought that they were going to be great this year because they told me when I didn't rank them.
Derek Culver, though. Derek Culver's good, and Sheboy will be there. So that'll be an interesting look. I guess they'll play 2 bigs. So I guess they'll probably rotate through them one at a time, 20 each, and then you play I know they have Sean McNeil. They still have 3 spots.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Yeah, I don't know. The backcourt's still kind of thin to me.
I think that's it for tonight. How about that?
Yeah, we could do it all night, but
time for bed.
This is Brad Case. I got time. It's the Central Time Zone. It's not even midnight yet. I got reading week this week, which means I don't have class. I just have like 1 million papers to write. Very exciting. But we will wrap up this edition of the podcast because Brad has to work in the morning. He's the man for doing this late. After I was busy all day yesterday, having a good time. So appreciate you all for listening. Hope you all have a great week. And if you have any ideas for the podcast, of course, hit us up. We will try to get them done over the off season as we head into a little draft season. But a lot of exciting stuff going on going forward with the CB Central podcast. Have a good one.